Welcome back to Skytech-Lens. It started with a tweet, a spark that ignited a trade war over North American steel. The Trump administration doubled down on steel tariffs, aiming to protect American jobs and manufacturing. But every move in global trade has a countermove, and the shockwaves quickly crossed borders. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney retaliated, setting the stage for a high-stakes economic chess match. This wasn't just about tariffs anymore, it was a battle between old-school protectionism and a new vision for clean, green industry. Detroit became the first casualty, as supply chains snapped and the U.S. auto industry trembled. This is the story of how a trade dispute spiraled into an industrial crisis, reshaping the future of manufacturing. The tariff announcement hit like a sledgehammer, no subtlety, just a wall around the American steel market. The promise, protect U.S. jobs. The reality, chaos for Detroit, soaring costs, stalled shipments, and layoffs in auto plants. What was meant as a shield quickly became a cage. In a global economy, protectionism can backfire, fast. While Detroit struggled, Ottawa saw opportunity. Prime Minister Mark Carney didn't just retaliate, he redefined the game. Instead of matching tariffs, Canada launched a $1 billion clean steel initiative. The goal: make Canadian steel cleaner, greener, and more valuable on the world stage. Canadian mills got funding to cut carbon emissions and invest in new technology. This wasn't just about survival, it was about leapfrogging the competition. Carney also imposed quotas and tariffs on non-North American steel, protecting the domestic market. Canada sent a message: it wouldn't be a dumping ground, and it would control its own supply. The trade war became a clean tech arms race. Canadian steel was now a premium product, appealing to automakers in Europe and Asia facing their own emissions rules. The strategy was bold. Canada wasn't just building tariff walls, it was building a smarter, cleaner industry. The investment gave Canadian mills a technological edge that tariffs couldn't touch. Diplomatically, Canada positioned itself as a climate leader, earning global praise. While the US was criticized for protectionism, Canada opened doors for new trade relationships. Canadian producers retooled, investing in electric arc furnaces and hydrogen-based methods. The government's commitment turned crisis into innovation. Carney's strategy was surgical, compliant with trade rules but transformative. Canada didn't just defend itself, it pivoted to the future. The message to the US was clear: you can build walls, but we'll build bridges to tomorrow's industries. The clean tech race had begun, and Canada had the early lead. The world was watching and buying. The US was stuck in the past, Canada was already competing in the future. The battleground had shifted, and the stakes were higher than ever. The next move would determine who led the new industrial era. Detroit's crisis deepened as steel prices soared and supply chains choked. Plant managers scrambled for steel, paying inflated prices and watching profits evaporate. Automakers faced a tough choice: eat the losses or raise prices and risk losing customers. Showroom traffic slowed, and sales forecasts dropped. Meanwhile, Canada was on the offensive. With the US market closed off, Canadian steelmakers targeted Europe, where green steel was in high demand. European automakers, eager to meet emissions targets, signed contracts with Canadian mills. Canadian steel became a value-added product, not just a commodity. Detroit, once the primary customer, was being bypassed. Canada's strategy paid off. New transatlantic trade routes formed, built on environmental responsibility. US trade policy looked volatile. Canada projected stability and innovation. In Michigan and Ohio, layoffs hit parts suppliers and communities hard. The very workers the tariffs were meant to protect became its first victims. US auto output dipped, and the intricate dance of North American manufacturing broke down. Canadian mills ran at full capacity, hiring workers and signing long-term deals with European giants. Detroit was outpriced at home and outpaced abroad. The US auto industry was stuck fighting yesterday's battle, while Canada raced ahead. Automakers and trade groups lobbied Washington, but the policy held firm. Detroit was left to navigate the crisis alone, outmaneuvered by Canada's clever pivot. The sense of being left behind grew. The slide gathered momentum, and recovery seemed out of reach. The contrast was stark. Canada thrived, Detroit struggled. The lesson was clear: innovation and adaptability win in a global market. The US was learning that lesson the hard way. The future belonged to those who could pivot, not just protect. The steel war had redrawn the map, and Detroit was no longer at the center. The world had moved on. Canada's strategy went beyond Europe. It reimagined its entire role in the global steel market. The government mandated domestic low-carbon steel for all major public projects, creating a stable home market. This build with Canadian steel policy was protectionism rebranded as quality and sustainability. It reinvested taxpayer dollars in Canadian jobs and industry, fueling a virtuous cycle. With the home market secure, Canada targeted Asia and South America, promoting high-quality, low-carbon steel. Trade delegations pitched Canadian steel to countries seeking sustainable infrastructure. All moves were carefully crafted to comply with the USMCA, avoiding legal challenges. Canada positioned itself as the stable, rule-abiding partner in North America. The result, a new steel map with strong domestic demand, new transatlantic routes and growing global reach. The US market was still there, but less critical. Canada had diversified, gaining leverage and independence. Future trade disputes would see Canada negotiating from strength. Multi-year contracts with new partners wouldn't vanish if US tariffs ended. Canada had built trust, new supply chains, and a distinct brand. A short-term crisis became a long-term advantage. The steel map was redrawn by foresight, not force. Canada won by starting a new game, not fighting the old one. Innovation, diplomacy, and market savvy outmaneuvered a superpower. The global pivot was complete. Canada was no longer dependent on one customer. The world had changed, and Canada was ready for it. The trade war's impact was personal, felt on factory floors and in families. In Detroit, hope for new jobs quickly turned to fear as steel costs soared. Parts suppliers cut overtime, froze hiring, then laid off workers. Temporary layoffs became permanent, and seasoned workers found themselves jobless. Anxiety spread. Rumors of plant closures and production slowdowns haunted communities. Local businesses suffered as workers lost income, shrinking the tax base and threatening public services. The trade war hollowed out the economic heart of towns, pitting neighbor against neighbor. In Canada, the story was different, but not without anxiety. When US tariffs hit, Canadian mills dependent on US buyers faced layoffs and uncertainty. As the clean steel plan took hold, hiring resumed, but new pressures emerged. Modernization and automation meant new skills were needed, leaving some workers behind. Truck drivers lost predictable routes as cross-border trade slowed. The seamless flow of goods and people was replaced by tension and delay. The fallout revealed a disconnect between policy rhetoric and human impact. The promise of protecting jobs ignored the web of dependencies in modern manufacturing. The trade war didn't create clear winners, just widespread disruption and fear. Long-standing relationships fractured and communities were left reeling. Workers on both sides felt like pawns in a distant game. Their futures were altered by decisions made far away. The human cost was real and lasting. As the dust settled, the verdict on the steel tariffs was clear. The strategy backfired. The Trump administration aimed to protect American industry, but the gains were short-lived. U.S. steel producers saw a brief surge, but the auto sector suffered far more. The policy misjudged the complexity of North American supply chains. Tariffs acted like a dam, blocking critical resources and causing downstream chaos. Price hikes, production cuts, and job losses in autos outweighed steel's temporary boost. Meanwhile, Canada leapfrogged ahead with its Clean Steel initiative. By investing in green tech, Canada created a premium market, insulated from U.S. politics. The U.S. tried to lock out foreign steel, but ended up locking in its own industry, at higher costs and lower competitiveness. Canada forged new global relationships, becoming a forward-thinking leader. The U.S. was left with a weaker hand and a less dependent trading partner. The policy failed to anticipate Canada's sophisticated response and the global market's adaptability. The real trap was not just economic pain, but a long-term strategic disadvantage. The human cost, layoffs, fear, fractured communities, was the true legacy. The episode proved that in today's world, innovation and adaptability matter more than tariff walls. The steel war ended as a lesson in strategy, not protectionism. One nation laid a trap, the other rewrote the rules. The map and the future belong to the innovators. The steel tariff saga is a lesson for the future. It asks, is prosperity built on protectionism or on innovation and global competition? Detroit's struggles show that walls can become cages, trapping industries behind. Canada's clean steel pivot offered a glimpse of manufacturing's future, where green credentials are key. The U.S. auto industry now faces a race to catch up, not just in cars, but in the materials that build them. The real damage is in lost reputation and missed opportunities. The debate isn't over. Should the U.S. double down on tariffs or pivot to compete? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching a video. Subscribe the channel Skytech-Lens for more updates. Thanks.